Hello, everyone. This is Lynn Marsden-Atlass. It's good to see you all, friends, and welcome. This afternoon, we're having a conversation with renowned artist, Audrey Flack. And we're going to speak about her work called World War II, which is currently in the Many Voices, Many Visions exhibition, actually right behind me here in the gallery. Suzanne, could we have the next slide? Welcome, Audrey. It's so delightful
Hi.
to see you today.
Nice to see you too.
We have lots to talk about. Audrey, the current exhibition, Many Voices, Many Visions at the Arthur Ross Gallery includes World War II, one of your Vanitas paintings, a dye transfer photograph. It's one of 12 of your Vanitas photographs that are in the Penn Art Collection. Can you share with us more about this particular work and the Vanitas series that you did in the 1970s?
Okay, so first of all, you can hear me?
Yes.
Good. You can't see me yet?
Yes, we can see you too.
You can see me. I can't see myself to see how gorgeous I look.
Well, you look gorgeous. You're in your studio.
Please, I worry about it. With the lines that, well, anyhow, they're character lines. That's what happens. It's
I'll
important
have them.
to say to myself. But I can't see myself. Is that okay?
That's fine, but can you see the screen that has
You see the screen, I can see you.
perfect? That's great.
Right. So, well, this is a photograph that I took to make the painting from. And things changed in the painting. But, you know, when I'm looking at it now, one of the interesting things that happened, because the photograph is staged clearly, you know, and the picture plane is tilted up. So things are not laying flat on a table. They're tilted up, which is what happens at the start of modernism, right? When Cézanne tilts the table up and Cubism tilts it up and abstract expressionism totally tilts it up. And coming out of abstract expressionism, that's what I was, that's what I did. So it was natural for me to think that way, as opposed to all the other photorealists. Except Chuck. Chuck did it head on too.
We're talking about Chuck Close, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't a tilted up picture plane. So here's this dish of pastries that's tilted up. You know, I had to prop that up. The book is propped up because that's the Margaret Burke White photograph.
Right. Tell people about the photograph, because not everybody knows this photograph now. It's by the famous photographer Margaret Burke White.
Yeah. And this
photographs. Mm-hmm.
I think I told you that after the painting was exhibited, I got sued by Time magazine, by the estate of Margaret Burke White. And you know what the lawyer's name was?
No.
You'll never guess. Eichmann.
Oh, no.
Eichmann, like Adolf Eichmann. You know, it was crazy. Anyhow, I had to give them $1. It was a more of a technical thing, but I used the photo.
The photo, of course, is of the concentration camp.
It's the moment of liberation of Buchenwald, and Margaret Burke White was there, and I was so struck at these faces that had no affect. I mean, they were deadened. They were stunned, I think, beyond expression. So sad. But what happened during the photography? Because this was an elaborate setup with boom lights, and I had glue and sticky clay, you know, tilting that cup up, that butterfly precariously poised at the edge of the cup. You know, that doesn't happen by itself. So all of these things were happening. Then I lit the candle and it started to burn down and melt. And the melted wax kept changing. At first it looked like blood. And in another photograph, I think one of the ones that I used for the painting, it looked like a Hebrew letter. It was very strange. It was very strange. I could talk about it forever.
And Audrey, in the photograph, do you see yourself in the glass on the proper right
Yeah.
of the
And that,
painting?
to me, that's like the cup of sorrows. That is a glass that I inherited from my ex-husband's family, the Viennese, very elegant Viennese family. Yes, I'm reflected there. I'm taking the picture.
Of course.
And you know, while I'm taking it, even the fruit is rotting, which is a Vanitas sign, you know, of decay. There's fresh fruit to symbolize perhaps a new, unspoiled young person, and then the candles burning down. There's the hourglass, which I've used. There's so many stories with this. I remember the Star of David, which you tell me now, Lynn, in
Yes.
all the years that you've gone to all over the world.
How many times have I seen the
seen
Star of
that?
David?
You know, the history of Western art is the history of Christ on the cross. And I just accepted that my whole life. So when it came to painting this, and it's a little keychain, trinket, I thought, I'm doing something wrong. There's something wrong. And I thought, I'm feeling I'm doing something wrong by painting a Star of David. You know, we have Chagall's Rabbi, but what else? What else is there out there? And when I painted this painting, it was 1978. Nobody was dealing with the war.
No, it wasn't the time. We were dealing with a different war, actually. The Vietnam War.
Well, they weren't dealing with World War II, which was over in 1945.
Right. Right.
And everybody thought the Guernica was about World War II, but it wasn't. The Guernica is about the Spanish Civil War. Now, Picasso did that. Nobody was doing anything for what, you know, the horror. I still think it has to be dealt with.
Now, Audrey, talk to me a little bit, because this is when you see the photograph, the color is absolutely luminous. And that's a dye transfer process that you worked on. So talk about that for a little bit for me. The symbolism is beautiful. And I love on the left-hand side, you have all of these, if I will, sort of feminine kind of symbols with the rose and the celebration of the fruits and the cakes here. And then you have this horror that has occurred, you know, with the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Which is never far from mind, in fact.
Well, you asked me about dye transfer. It's an amazing process that's not used anymore, because you can dye from dye transfer from the fumes that come out of the chemicals. There's a wonderful gold vermeil covering that was used also in the 19th century on certain statues. That's not allowed anymore for the same. There are vapors, mercury vapors that come out of it. But this process is probably the last dye transfer that was done. And it basically is isolation of 3 colors, which is how I was working in my paintings. Chuck Close and I were working with red, yellow, and blue.
Very Mondrian-like.
I never thought of that. But he is flat.
Yes,
He's
very flat.
wonderful. He's flat and totally modernist. What this was doing was in a way defying modernism. I'm just to go off for a minute. I was painting flat base colors, and then I would spray over it. But when you spray a cadmium red, or if I spray a cadmium red and I paint the exact same color, they look totally different. Totally, because the spray from the airbrush is picking up beads of light, which is what, in a modernist way, Lichtenstein does with his dots.
Right.
So in between this is all technical, but in between the dots is light. And I was painting with light. And when you're spraying, depending on how far away you are and how close, is how much light is applied. So this cadmium red is brilliant and light. The exact same color painted out of a tube is flat. Fascinating. So much in here. People don't really understand the depths of photorealism. Yeah, I think they will.
So I want to go to the next slide, Audrey, because it's actually the painting, and then we have the comparison side by side.
Oh.
This is the photograph that's in our collection. And this was acquired, this large painting, which is a square format. And I want you to talk about how you started working in the square format, because we talked about that the other day. But this is the painting, which is currently and owned delightfully recently in 2017, was purchased by the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. After I left, I must add. But this is in some ways quite different than the photograph.
I don't see the photograph next to it.
We'll go to the next slide. Maybe that will be easier. Yeah, here we go.
Wow. Well, the photograph looks so much brighter, but it isn't.
Right.
My God, images lie, don't they?
They do.
In terms of scale, that painting is 8 by 8 feet. It's big. And
so if you stand in front of it, you can't not see on the surface all of this beauty and behind the photograph.
Well, I think I want to take away the photograph. Can we do that?
Sure.
Because it's lying to us.
The painting?
Yeah, just have the painting.
That's the photograph.
That's the photo.
There we are.
Actually, some critic in the Times said that this was a photograph, that I had painted, that I just blew up a photograph. And it was beyond me, that they could even think that. It's so different.
Is that Hilton Kramer? Just out of curiosity.
Hilton wouldn't do that. You know what? I block out the name because this painting was so blasted. It was called ugly and vulgar. The critic couldn't stand my use of color and the vulgarity. It was mind-boggling to me. Because I guess I was breaking rules, I was breaking all kinds of rules without intending to. It's really a very beautiful painting. All right, so where you asked me, where should we start?
Where should we go from here? So in 2017, PAFA acquired this fabulous painting. So what was your working method with this work? Did you arrange the Vanitas still life and photograph it? Or did you paint directly from the still life?
The photograph started, but before the photograph, I collect props. That can take me a year. And, you know, what do I want? And there was that strange, actually a Mexican. Can you see my arrow?
No.
No. Well, the candlestick is a Mexican candlestick.
Oh.
And then I had the vase, that cup of sorrows. The music up at the top. You know, this is compositionally completely abstract. So I needed something up the top, and it's cello music. My ex-husband was a cellist, and that was around the house. And I think I told you that I found out years later they had a group of Jewish cellists playing music as they marched people to the gas chambers.
No, you did not tell me that.
The whole thing, everything about this painting was quite amazing, because I think when artists are really in tune with the collective unconscious, you pick things up. It's almost telepathic. You do things and you don't know why you're doing it. And then that speaks to society. So what happened, I had to have pastries, and I wanted to show the difference between these rich petit fours and the starving prisoners. So I went to a bakery in the neighborhood on 86th Street and Amsterdam Avenue called Lichtman's. They had great babkas, and they had these pastries, these petit fours. And I'm poring over the counter, looking through the glass, trying to pick out the most perfect ones. And I was there so long that Mr. Lichtman came out. And he said, "Can I help you?" He was wearing a white apron. He was the baker, the owner. And I said, "I'm sorry I'm taking so long, but I'm making this painting about World War II, and I have to have perfect pastries. You know, they can't have a dent." And he stood there and looked at me and rolled up his sleeve. And there were tattoo marks. He had been in the concentration camp.
Oh.
It was absolutely chilling. Of course, he gave me the best pastries that you could find. Now, apropos of the pastries, that's one of the things that the painting got ridiculed. How could I be so crass as to put pastries next to starving people? And how could I even have them on a silver plate? I mean, the painting was really blasted for the things.
So Audrey, how did you respond to that? Because I see it as the abundance of life and what these people, the deprivation that these people have had.
You know, I think when I really think about it, I think certain people, and obviously the critics who wrote this, have trouble dealing with intense emotion. It also could have to do with a Protestant ethic where you're not supposed to show it. I think that is all changing right now. At any rate, how did I deal with it? I was crushed. I think I got sick after that because I had put, my brother had fought in the World War. He was in the Battle of the Bulge.
Oh, he was in the Battle of the Bulge?
Yeah, he was one of 2 soldiers out of thousands that were left alive.
Yes, that was
It was a bloodbath.
Yeah, that was devastating.
And I was a kid, but I was a Jewish kid, even though I was not religious. We were secular Jews, but you felt it, you felt your vulnerability. At any rate, years pass. Nobody touched the painting. Nobody wanted it. Nobody showed it. The reviews were horrible.
Did Louis Mizell show it?
Lewis showed it. Lewis was amazing. Lewis
Was he
had
the dealer at the time, right? Louis Mizell was your dealer at that time,
he
because I
was
think
my dealer. He's still my friend. We're like an old married couple, although we're divorced. But when he showed the painting, he had to put ropes around it. Hundreds of people, the public really responded. But that didn't matter, you know, to the art world has been and still can be quite elitist and not care what people want. Hopefully that's changing. I don't know. At any rate, the Jewish Museum calls maybe 10 years later and said they want to put this painting in an exhibit. I said, great, you know, we get it out of storage. And a week after it was up, they call me and say, I think I told you, there's a group of women that want to give you an award. They have selected your painting as their favorite painting in the show. I said, well, that's great. So they're having a luncheon. I am invited to the luncheon. And I'm a little bit of a nut because I only wear jeans. I wear blue jeans, black jeans, and white jeans, fancy jeans and plain jeans. But so I got my best jeans on, and I go to this luncheon, and these women are wearing Adolfo suits, and they're beautiful. Tables are set. And no one spoke to me. They were all talking to each other. A lot of chatter, maybe 350 people. I finally asked someone, who are these strange people? There was something strange. Well, this is the Tel Hai Hadassah, all Holocaust survivors. So, oh my God. What am I possibly going to say to them? You know, I was not in the war. Well, anyhow, they asked me to talk in front of the painting. And I guess 350 pair of high heel shoes, clop down the steps. We go stand in front of the painting. I'm expecting the question about how could I paint the petit fours in front of the starving people? And sure enough, a very beautiful, well-dressed woman, and I remember she had a French twist, raises her hand and says, how could you paint the petit fours in front of the starving people? But I know how you could do it. When she said, when I was in Auschwitz with my mother, we were starving to death. We had one crumb that we shared between us at night. And the only thing that kept us alive was to imagine that that crumb was a delicious pastry. How did you know, Audrey? How did you know that that's what kept us alive? And of course, to me, I get goose pimples now when I talk about it. It was redemption.
yes, it was redemption. It's beautiful.
And Lynn, every time that painting was shown after that, because there was a big tour, somebody bought it, it was really,
Right.
Someone in the audience was a survivor and said the same thing. So that's a universal. That's somewhere I must have been in touch with.
That's fascinating. So Audrey, I want to ask you a couple of questions.
I feel like I'm talking too much.
No, you're not talking too much. It's perfect. I was going to ask you about the camera that you used for the photograph. Sorry, I'm gonna go forward in a minute because we have some early works of yours. But talk about this square format.
Oh, well, I had a lot of cameras. I was, the photorealists were pretty good photographers. It was before photorealism brought about photography. Not, it was always there, but I think we put the spotlight on it. We didn't think of ourselves as photographers. We only used it as a vehicle. But at any rate,
Well, in the late 70s, there was only one photography gallery in New York.
Yeah.
It wasn't one.
There was Ansel Adams.
Right.
You didn't have a world of photography.
No.
We were taking pictures. Richard and Estes and I went out together because we lived near each other, and we'd go photograph, and we discussed lenses. And he uses wide angle lenses because he wants to see a whole street. I want to zoom in and see the details up close. So I had I didn't like my Nikon, and I got a couple of German cameras, contacts, but then I got a hold of a Hasselblad. And I loved my Hasselblad. And Hasselblad had a 2¼ square format, which is what happened. So all of those paintings of that period have to do with the Hasselblad. Very German camera. It tells you when you're wrong. It tells you when to stop.
And it always gives you this square format.
Square format.
You can zoom in. It's very, and you hold it here and not through your eyes. Typically.
Well, yeah, you have to look down at it. And I had all kinds of stands. I had all kinds of lenses. I mean, it's an amazing camera. Amazing. I have some beautiful photographs from it.
So Suzanne, could you advance to the next slide? Actually, we'll go past these. This is not a good comparison, but let's talk about your earlier work. I know that we're not going to talk about the abstract expressionist work, but that's when you ended up at Yale through a scholarship, having met and shown your portfolio to Joseph Albers. But this is 1969, 1970.
Did you happen to see the film, the documentary?
Yes, I saw it twice. I watched it last night and the night before because I had
time with Albers, boy. Okay.
So yes, the bad boy Albers. Well, that was the 70s, certainly.
That was the 50s.
Oh, that was the 50s. Oh boy. I was going to say that was definitely the 70s as well.
I was there in 1951.
There you go.
Well, this is, I think, one of the very first, if not the first, paintings on the subject of protest. But at that time, I love this painting. They told me that it's at the Gray Art Gallery, the NYU collection.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But I have not seen it since 1970, which is how many years?
50 years?
50 something years?
51 years. Mm-hmm.
I've not seen this painting. I just think it's really important historic painting. And they tell me that they've shown it and lent it, but I didn't know. They didn't let me know. But this is called Sisters of the Immaculate Conception, Marching for Freedom. And at that time, the Blacks could not march. They'd have been slaughtered. Yes. They'd have been shot, whipped, whatever. And I think the expression of fear and concern on everybody's face, I just think it's fascinating. These pure or puritanical or, women, particularly the one in the middle who's so young and so completely waspy and white. They are standing up for something that they believe in. And they've got this whole crowd. And the one with her finger in her mouth in the back, mm-hmm. she's concerned, but they are putting themselves out. I also think that the hair was not, you didn't have afros. And there's a kind of beginning, you know, these Black people have been downtrodden and beaten, but they're starting, you know. I love this painting. That's all. And nobody was dealing with it then. This is the way I dealt with it then. There was a whole series of political paintings I did.
We have another one. Suzanne, can you advance the slide? This one.
This is the first Vietnam March. I went down to Fifth Avenue with my, I used my little Nikon and took the shot. I made the painting. I don't know where it is now. Some gallery owner bought it.
In 1969, I think.
Whatever. And there's a picture of Martin Luther King on this young man's button.
Yes, I see it. It's interesting because we have some photographs in many voices, many visions of Bruce Davidson, and Magnum sent Bruce Davidson down to Birmingham in 1961, and he rode the Freedom Bus from Montgomery, Alabama to Jackson, Mississippi. And when they got with Blacks, whites, and the National Guard, very dangerous, you know, assignment, which he volunteered for. And when they got to Jackson, everybody on the bus, except the National Guard, of course, were arrested. And it was at that point that he began to photograph every single march and every single demonstration, particularly in the South, and all the Martin Luther King demonstrations till 1965. So there are 4 of those images that are also in this exhibition. But I've never seen this painting, so this is really interesting.
I haven't seen it since, and I wonder where it is, but I'm glad I've got a photo. Yep. Some of my works I don't even have photos of.
So Suzanne, advance to the next painting as well. This is another historic painting a little bit earlier, the Kennedy motorcade.
Well, it's really 63. It's labeled 64, but it's 63. I'm sorry the slide is not very good because the color is much more intense. But I remember being in my kitchen with my 2 children running around between my ankles when he was shot. And I remember seeing the actual murder.
Yeah. And
that was shocking because you didn't, you know, these days you see wars, you see things, but you didn't see it then. So to see this man, human being, get his brains blown out. At any rate, I knew that I had to do something about it. And maybe this is my first official photorealist painting, because how am I going to paint him? You know, he didn't exist anymore. I had to use a photo. And
this came out of a newspaper or like a magazine?
I went through newspapers, magazines. It came out of, I think, a magazine. I'm not sure. I don't even remember, but it's a known photo. And I wanted this photo because I didn't want to show the horror. This is like moments before. You know something is about to happen. What fascinated me is, look at Kennedy. And you see his suit. You see that ominous shadow.
Yes.
Somebody outside, right? Also, I was having fun because all my buddies were painting cars. Well, so there's the back of the car with reflections. In the back is the driver of the limousine that gets out and gets Jackie, who's wearing her, you know, pillbox hat and kind of cartoony glove, and everybody's happy. The sun is shining. All the guys in the back, the pilots, everybody's smiling, except for one person, Connolly, who's looking at the camera, who's holding his tie, and who's tilting his head. And he knows, I believe that he knew something was about to happen.
But Conley was also struck.
Yes,
correct?
he was.
He
Not
was.
lethally, but he had to know. Look at him.
Yeah,
You know, Kennedy's totally open.
totally
So,
open.
yeah, we were all very devastated by that assassination. It was pretty horrible. So that set off a series of political paintings that I did. One
So
is that.
and there's the next one, I think. Yeah.
I have no idea. I'm trying to find where this painting is. Somebody bought it, named Edward Lamb, in Toledo, Ohio. He had the Edward Lamb building. I can't find him. I can't find the painting. Anyhow, these are two women. Also, it's 1963 because I did it right after the assassination.
Because the assassination was November 20, I want to say the 6th, but I don't think it was. I think it was like the 24th.
23rd. Well, so maybe I painted them in December. Maybe one went over to January. I'm not sure. But I remember painting this, and nobody was painting Black people, including me.
Right.
And I remember picking up a tube of flesh tint. Winsor Newton made a paint called flesh tint. And I automatically picked it up because I'm painting flesh. And I thought, oh my God, you know, flesh tint was pink. It was for our color skin. So that really opened my eyes to a lot. I just began looking at Black people on the subway, everywhere, and looking at color tints, you know, what happens to the cheek and where do you put red and how do you mix the color? And I also have Black family because my mother's sister married a very Black man. She was very white. So I have a lot of caramel colored cousins who I was looking at.
Yeah.
At any rate, to me, they are so beautiful. They're almost like the two Marys, you know, they're almost biblical in their grief. I'd love to see that painting again.
There was such profound grief. I remember I was very young, but I remember going to my neighbors and watching for 3 days the mourning, and right to the left of your photograph, Audrey, is a photograph by Elliot Erwitt in Many Voices, Many Visions. And it's actually a photograph of Jackie Kennedy at Arlington Cemetery at the very end of the 3 days of mourning, when he's captured her. They've given her John Kennedy's flag that was draped on the casket at Arlington Cemetery. And it's just at that moment, as she's looking away, you still have a military guard to her left. It's very poignant, very poignant.
Oh, it's so poignant. And how about little John saluting his father at the grave and her walking there with the two children.
Two small children following the cortege. Yeah, it was
I was very identifying, you know, because I had two small children. My life was a disaster then. I was married to this cellist. We had no money. He was a classical composer. You could imagine how much money he was making. And I was trying to sell a painting to pay the rent. And then here was Jackie. And here was this great tragedy. But I thought, she has all this power behind her. You know, she has all this money and wealth behind her. And yet she was a mother. It was.
And really, she was totally unprotected. She was very young,
Yeah,
in her 30s, as I recall.
she was only 30.
Very young.
Now we have other times. Now we have times that are pretty wild.
We've had quite a time. This year has been unlike any other. So Suzanne, can we move forward? Let's see. You described the dye transfer process as and I was commenting on that as achieving stunning results with layers and saturation that create richness and depth. I love this royal flush. It has also been described as expensive, time-consuming, and toxic. So you did describe the process, because all of these Vanitas portfolio photographs that were a portfolio you used the dye transfer process in. This is one of them, the royal flush.
Well, the portfolio was commissioned by a collector. I could never afford to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm delighted. Well, royal flush, exists only as a photograph. The painting is different. Painting doesn't have the hand pouring the scotch, doesn't have the beer can, it's different. Not that different. So again, the picture plane is tilted up. And you think about Pollock's blue poles with all of these cigars, which are just lines. They're heavy, heavy lines. What can I tell you? My mother, my charming, beautiful singer, songwriting mother, was an addictive gambler. She had a very secret life. And I did this painting for her when she was quite old. She played poker till she was 103.
Oh my gosh. You did mention in the film that she gambled away the food money and the rent money and things like that. So you lived in a certain precarity, right? And
well, I would not recommend having an addictive gambler as a parent. It's very similar to alcoholism because they get a rush of pheromones.
Sure.
And gamblers get the same rush that alcoholics do. And they need more, they keep getting more. At any rate, she was an incredible woman, very charming, and but not the greatest mother. So a royal flush is the fantasy hand. And a royal flush it's a 10 jack, queen, king, or ace. That's the highest. A straight flush, you could have 8, 9, 10, jack, queen, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But a royal flush has to go from the 10 to the ace. And it has to be in one suit. So it could be in clubs, spades, diamonds, or hearts. And obviously I chose hearts because I wanted not only to give my mother the fantasy that, to get a royal flush is like winning the mega jackpot. It just is 1 in a billion. By the way, I got one.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I'm a poker player, but I'm not an addict. I'm not an addict. I get addicted for like a week at a time, but then I can leave it. But I got a royal flush in hearts in a casino in one of the islands.
That's great. Suzanne, can we look at a couple more?
This is up at MoMA. I think it's still up. It's on the 5th floor.
Oh, the painting is on the 5th floor?
Yeah.
Oh,
MoMA bought it in 1974, hung it a couple of months ago. So I had
But
not seen it.
you were the first photorealist to be purchased and to be acquired by MoMA.
Yeah,
Only
but
one.
they didn't hang it. You know, photorealism is so interesting. The public loves it.
Public
And,
love.
and they responded to the painting up at MoMA. The MoMA was quite surprised. But somehow, well, that's another matter. That's for art historians to deal with. You know, the public knows what they want and like. Unfortunately, they're told too much what they should like. At any rate, she is Leonardo's painting of La Belle Ferronnier, which means she's wearing that headband, a beautiful headband. And she was supposed to be even prettier than the Mona Lisa.
And so you surrounded her with all of the, well, the still life is all also a memento mori, right?
It is, you know, in a way, this is one of my most gentle paintings. And I'll tell you, Lynn, I was never, I'm a feminist. I'm wearing my feminist, see my t-shirt.
No, we can't see the t-shirt. What does it say?
It says feminist AF.
What's the AF stand for?
Well, I'm at the New York Museum of the City of New York, and they have a gift shop. I'm with a friend of mine who was a curator there of costumes. And I see this sweatshirt and it says feminist AF. And I say, that's my initials. How come they have my initials? Audrey Flack. And the woman got kind of red in the face. And she said, don't you know what that stands for?
No.
And I said, no. Can I say it now? Feminist as.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it.
Feminist as fuck. That's what it said. So I bought it immediately. But anyway.
Your initials.
My initials.
There you
I
go.
went with a friend who said, my God, Audrey, there is no doubt in this entire museum that this painting, which is quite large, it's a Hasselblad painting, about 8 feet square, that it was done by a woman. No doubt. And she was right, because it's not angry feminist, it's not a rape painting, it's just a female, very feminine painting.
Very beautiful.
And it's very beautiful. And that, you know, you didn't see.
No, that's true, Audrey. This is 1975. And to be honest with you, you know, can you think of any women who were pop artists? We did have abstract expressionists, but I'm trying to think of the people that were very popular in pop art were all male.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
So it wasn't until the late 70s and we had sort of a feminist wave of Miriam Shapiro, yourself, a whole bunch of women who came into the canon, if you will, and were exhibited and seen in museums at that time.
Well, you had a very large group of angry feminists. It's not that I have not been angry at men. I have. I love men, but I get married. But there was a group of very angry feminists. Very few people were doing feminine works, you know, and so my lipsticks and my things like, it was interesting. It's an interesting time. Well, we did break, we broke a lot of taboos.
Yes.
So I was happy this was up. It was nice to see it.
Next time I go back to MoMA, I'll have to look for it.
If it's still up, you know, they keep changing. I wish they'd listen to the public a little bit. That, you know, I think MoMA, it's an incredible museum. I spent my life there, my childhood there. but somewhere it feels to me like it's lost its soul. That's another discussion.
That's another discussion, Audrey. Suzanne, can we go on to the next? Because I'm looking at our time and I want to get through all of the images. This is Queen and the Wheel of Fortune. You want to talk about the Wheel of Fortune, Audrey? There's a wonderful scene when this was on view at the parish in your film, which is called Queen of Hearts, Audrey Flack, which is,
You
by
can
the
get
way,
it on Amazon.
that's right.
You go to Amazon.
And you talk about this in the film, and it's a fascinating painting. You want to talk about it a little bit? Or in this case, we have the photograph.
Well, there I am you see the mirror globe up there, and there I am shooting the picture.
Right.
Um,
So this is more a memento mori because of.
oh yeah, there's a poem that is on the frame, which I have to call the parish because I don't know what they did with that I painted out this poem, but it's an old poem. It's a 19th century poem called Invictus. And I loved that poem when I was a kid. Out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. So the poem goes on, but this has to do with what you're dealt with in life. And, I was dealt a lot of good things and a lot of difficult things, as most of us have. And I have 2 daughters. And sort of this was made probably about my older daughter, who's in the photograph up on the left-hand corner. I'm not going to dwell on it too much because it goes right to my heart. But she's very beautiful. She's wonderful, and I adore her. But she cannot speak, and she's severely autistic. And that's what life dealt me. It just dealt me that.
And very hard at a time when Bruno Bedelheim and others people didn't know about autism at that time, or did they know about, I had a dyslexic brother. They didn't understand that.
You had what kind of brother?
And dyslexic brother.
Yeah.
Really dyslexic brother, and very creative. He became an artist.
That's what happens. Well, no, they didn't understand that. And this Bruno Bettelheim said he was a psychiatrist or a psychoanalyst, and he was lying. But everybody believed him, and he blamed the mothers. And it was really a tragic time because he set back medicine. These kids didn't get the help they needed. And he was lauded. He was on the Dick Cavett show. He was all over TV. And then he was exposed as a fraud. And he apologized to the mothers and committed suicide.
Oh, no.
But it was too late. I mean, we were brutalized. You'd go to a doctor and they would treat you, you want help for your child, and they would treat you like you did it. I was told, well, have a glass of wine. You're too nervous.
Oh, goodness.
It's a rough story. But I want you to notice that skull because I teach anatomy, and that is an amazing skull. It is a perfect skull. It's very hard to find a perfect. Right now, because they were killing people for their skulls. So now they're all plastic. But this gorgeous skull, I love her.
And a full set of teeth.
Yeah. Unusual.
Audrey, I want to just advance the slides for a minute and then give us a little bit of time because I see we're coming up on our hour. So I want to see, Suzanne is going to, there are lots of people who want to ask you questions, I think.
Okay.
So this is beautiful. So, yeah.
Rolls Royce lady.
Yeah, beautiful sense of color there.
Oh, that little photograph in the painting by Melendez, you know, it was, okay, anyhow, here's a skull and roses.
Right.
This is, you know, looking at a lot of the Spanish still life painters, which
Mhm.
need more attention. And so did the Spanish Baroque artists.
Mhm. So Suzanne, do you think that we could, yeah, I love this because you see, you know, as in the Dutch still lifes, you often see the reflection of the window and in this case, you photographing, which is wonderful. Suzanne, could you, thank you. That's great for the slides. And I love the paint, the little paintbrush here, the colors. Could you look at the chat for us and sort of talk about a little bit about questions, if anybody has any questions for Audrey?
Yes, I do see one question, and it is from Heather Maktadari. And it says, thanks, Audrey Flack, for speaking. Thank you to Audrey Flack for speaking about her life as a painter, both personally and professionally. This is a wonderful conversation. I would love to hear more about working as an artist, as a mother with young children. And I also identify with that question, so I put a thumbs up on that as well.
Wow. This is something, Heather, that when I was young, you did not mention. I mean, you did not mention that you had children or that you were a mother. You just didn't. And because you were thought less of. I mean, I'm writing now. I've been writing, oh my God, 35 or 40 years I've been writing this book. I think I'm finishing it now. But, you know, it's all right not to have children if you don't want children or if you can't have children. But once you have children, you have a responsibility. Right? And certainly in the days when I had children, it was totally the woman's responsibility. On top of which I had a special needs child. I had 2 children and a kind of then difficult husband. I mean, thank God I got a great husband later on, but it was not easy. But art really saved my life. I don't know. I don't think I could have survived without it. I would, you know, Melissa, with her autism, had a sleep disorder. Nobody believed me at the time, but it's coming out more and more now as mothers speak out that it's one of the disorders, besides not being able to speak, that the sleep mechanism is so disturbed. So if I finally got her to sleep, I would go into the studio, which was in the living room or wherever I took it, and I'd paint all night. And as tired as I was, it just kept me going. And it still does. You know, it's, you know, I worry about art students now who don't know how to draw, who do everything on the internet, who need things to be instant. And I understand that. I mean, it's a strange society. But there's something so beautiful and pure about time alone with your work, with the universe, that is healing, because art is healing, and is puts you in touch with the sacred. So I could say it's hard, And I think it's important, and I think it enriches your life to be a decent parent, a good, responsible parent. Takes a lot out of you. You've got to be strong and not give up and do your work. And more power to you. Like it.
Thank you, Audrey. I have two
Great.
daughters, so I know about that.
You
We
too.
also have another question. It says this is listed as from being anonymous, but it says, in Skull and Roses, it looks like we see you in the reflection in the vase. Is that true? And are there other places where we find you in your works?
I have to look carefully at that one. You know, I might be in there. I'm not quite sure. Not quite sure it's me. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. But of course I'm in all my work because it's me. But actually, I'm about to do one now. A self-portrait. I think it will be my next, where I'm putting lipstick on my beautiful skeleton. I have another skeleton in the studio, but you know, what did Jackson Pollock said? Every artist paints himself. We're always painting ourselves. That's who we are. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, thank you. There's a lot of appreciation in the chat. I don't see any more questions, but we can pause for a moment to see if other people post questions either in the Q&A or I'll look and see if there's any in the chat.
I was going to say, I have a question, Audrey. What have you been working on in your studio during COVID?
Oh, I didn't send you a picture, did I?
Oh.
Did I send you Days of Reckoning?
No.
Oh, is it too late to do it now?
Yes, but that's okay.
Oh,
Tell us
that's
about
too.
Days of Reckoning. Or maybe you did and I didn't
What?
see it. It's possible.
Probably didn't. Days of Reckoning. Well, I have a new series of work that I've been working on for the past few years. It's called Post-Pop Baroque. You know, no longer photorealism. And Days of Reckoning is a 6 by 8 foot painting. It's a big painting based on Durer's Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. One of the great prints of all time. You know that print.
Yes.
So there are 4 horsemen on their horses flying through the sky, bringing pestilence and famine and death. And so I took 3 of those horsemen, 3 of the horses, 2 of the horsemen. And I made this huge painting. And they are riding through the sky. And there are fires, and there's some beautiful cartooning girl drowning or coming out of the water. There's a Hokusai wave spilling over 2 children. There's a very plump nude who's pouring herself a can of Coke, floating in the air. And it's kind of almost humorous, tragic, funny, weird, everything that's going on. Before it started, I started the painting. Before the pandemic, I started the painting. And the painting is, I wish I could show it to you. I love that painting. I wanted somebody to acquire it here. Some German collector has it, a wonderful collector. That's the Dürer.
That's Dürer, yes.
Oh my God, this is a small print. Matter of fact, I have to, some New York dealer has this for sale right now. There's Death on a Pale Horse in front. He's very skinny. The one with the, it looks like the scales of justice, but that's pestilence. And then there's war, there's famine. I have a couple of those horses, including death. 1, 2, I've got 3. And I've got the people being trampled. But the rest of my painting, I mean, there's a rainbow on the right because there's always hope. And out of these scales, those cups, are some green goop is dripping onto this pink pudgy girl. Oh, you got it.
Oh,
Okay, confirmation. I wanted to know if this was what, yeah,
This is it. This is my painting.
oh my goodness.
It just landed in Leipzig. And so, you know,
Suzanne,
what about the opioid epidemic? So it says crack and it says coke. And she's holding on for dear life of this coke. And there's this kind of iridescent goo that is coming out of this girl's body who's emerging from the water. And a ship is sinking. And a wave is overflowing on these 2 children who look like they're being electrocuted. And the little boy, well, with their poor little genitals exposed, the poor little boy is holding onto a raindrop, like that's going to help him, right? And these gold bricks are falling down. They're crashing down. The earth is exploding. The horses are on fire. There's the clergy on the lower left being swallowed up by some animal.
So
Audrey, this might be a good, oh, sorry to cut in. We have another question, and this might be a good question to answer while we still have this painting up. Karen asks, what is your process for deciding upon a series?
Well, right now, my process has changed because with photorealism, I was not involved with line. As a matter of fact, there is no line in nature. When you think about it, if you draw an outline of your fingers, there's no line on your fingers. Your fingers are just form. So this is a whole other discussion, it's something I teach. But I suddenly got very involved with line. And the line involved in this Dürer woodcut is incredible. Mm-hmm. So my process is I found a wonderful instrument, 2. One was called Malato and the other one is called Posca. And these are pens that you can fill with acrylic paint. And so I can draw with acrylic paint. So a lot of this is drawn with acrylic paint and painted with acrylic paint. What you can't see is there's a lot of glitter and gold on the gold bricks that are falling down. There's phosphorescent paint. I'm playing around with a lot of things that I'm enjoying, but I am really enjoying the linear process and also bringing to life a lot of engravers and woodcut artists that are not appreciated enough, that are wonderful, that did work for famous artists. I hope that answers my process.
Well, it is definitely apocalyptic. And oddly enough, Audrey, this exhibition, that Many Voices, Many Visions, was done because we had to postpone another exhibition, and I went into the collection, not in the usual way by looking at the artworks, but actually by looking at the database, because we couldn't go into the office. And when I had assembled all these works together, I didn't really know what it was going to be about. And it turns out that it's all about what happened in 2020. It's all about everything.
Isn't that painting exactly what happened?
Exactly. Exactly. Suzanne, do we have any more questions?
No, it looks like we don't have any more questions. And oh, wait, let me see. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. Thank you. And can you speak to the subject matter for the series? So this is a follow-up for Karen. So if you want to speak to that, and anyone who has to go, thank you so much for joining us. But Karen asks, thank you, and can you speak to the subject matter for the series?
Not quite sure what that means.
I think it might, I could be wrong, but I think it might be, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I think it might be referring to this painting, or to this, or the work that we were just looking at. I can screen share that again.
To Days of Reckoning? Oh, of my new series.
So. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I guess, look, we're all gonna die. And that's something that we don't deal with because we can't. It's very hard. I have to now. I'm really rapidly approaching an age where it is undeniable. And all my work is always, I think art deals, helps you live through this crazy life that we're in. And everybody has been dealing with it with the pandemic now. So I think the whole series has a lot to do with that. My art, you know what? It's probably the same as it's always been, except that I have a lot of aesthetic ideas, a lot of technical experimentation that people overlooked with photorealism. They'll go back and see it. But I also think, I've the whole world of comics, by the way, comic artists, a lot of them are very talented. I think Dürer was a comic book artist. He was an illustrator. So there's a lot of reevaluation, a lot of looking. Look at all the negative space in this painting. I mean, it's a very abstract painting, as all my work is. And I'm enjoying it so much. I'm really enjoying the process. So I think the whole post-pop Baroque, it's kind of pop. And it's Baroque because I love the Baroque. Anyhow, I think it's something, offering something new. So that's it. Well, thank you all so much.
Audrey, thank you so much for your wonderful time with us today. I feel like I've been talking to a friend that I've known forever, and thank you for being so informative for all of our students and faculty and friends that have been on with us today. And I will remember your sweatshirt always.
Oh yeah, I think I'm going to make them. I mean, I just love this sweatshirt. Thank you so much, Lynn, and all you artists out there. Keep going. Love you all, and the art lovers.
And the art lovers, exactly. And the collectors, Audrey. We love them.
Oh, wow, we can't do without them. And the philanthropists, everybody. You know, we're just people.
Thank you so much, Audrey. It's wonderful to be with you today.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.